Zabrowski, that if this or other claims were known to Credit Suisse at the time, that it would be outside the scope of the settlement?
Senator, the settlement is really outside the scope of my engagement. I haven't really done an analysis of that.
And can you or Rabbi Cooper share with us who are some of the beneficiaries of the rat line? That is, who are some of the more high-profile beneficiaries of the Credit Suisse financing of these rat lines to get people out of Germany?
Part of that is partly a work in progress. We identify in my written testimony a handful of the Nazis who we've confirmed were directly assisted by members of the rat line, but that work is ongoing. This was, many Nazis went to Argentina. The estimates are hundreds of war criminals made their way from Germany into Argentina. One of the things that we're still working on is, were all of them participants of the AIO rat line, or was it a subset of them? It's part of what we're working on. But some of the bold-faced names who've not yet directly tied, people like Adolf Eichmann, people like Dr. Mengele, they did transport from Germany into Italy, and onto Argentina, but we haven't confirmed their participation in this rat line quite yet.
And Rabbi Cooper, why Argentina? Why did Argentina become this mecca for fleeing Nazis?
Well, there was a strong German community in Argentina even before World War II, and of course you had Juan Perón, who ideologically was very comfortable with what the Third Reich was involved with, and also, I think, economically benefited from that relationship. Senator Schiff, I really want to thank you for raising the question, because especially for younger generations, you hear the term rat line. I think it's important, and we don't have, for sure, a direct connection on specific individuals that we've been able to learn yet, but we're talking about the architect of the Holocaust, Adolf Eichmann. We're talking about Dr. Joseph Mengele, the angel of death of Auschwitz, responsible for the death of 400,000, for the murder, 400,000 people, including medical experiments. We're talking about Walter Rauff, who was the person who invented the portable gas chambers. We're talking about the commandant of Treblinka, where 800,000 men, women, and children, Jewish children in Poland, were gassed to death. So the big names and the smaller names. And I can just also add, and I know if he was alive today, he would be so grateful to the chairman and everyone here for this hearing. These individuals would escape justice. Mr. Wiesenthal was up against an incredible series of red lines that made it so difficult. He was after Eichmann, they got Eichmann. Mengele avoided the bar of justice until the day he died. Ralph and others, when they were finally exposed, suddenly got sick and passed away in South America. So Argentina, politically speaking, ideologically speaking, in terms of the person running that country with an iron fist, was the perfect place. It was also a large country, and some of them left Argentina for Paraguay and other places in South America at a time when the world was ready to move on from World War II and were involved in other issues. A few people like Simon Wiesenthal had the courage to pursue it, and the reason it was so difficult, you have to lay some of that blame right at the Credit Suisse officials who facilitated the financing of these activities in the immediate months and years after World War II.
Chairman, may I ask one last question? Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for holding this hearing. And thank you, Ranking Member Durbin. I just want to drill down a little bit further on the settlement and the connotations of that. Is this an issue about whether there should be further disclosure of other Credit Suisse activity complicity, not just in the rat lines, but in any of these transactions with Nazis? Is this an issue of disclosure, or is this an issue of compensation? That is, you could take the position that the settlement caps the compensation, or you could take the position that we're not going to make any further disclosure because it would risk compensation. So I'm trying to get a sense of what's at issue here. I would imagine that this is sort of along the lines of what Senator Kennedy said. It would be advantageous to make the disclosure, not fight the disclosure. And if you take a position that any subsequent claim made on the basis of those disclosures is somehow barred, that seems to me a different issue for a different day. But I welcome you to share any other thought.
Thank you very much, Senator. I think it's very important to understand the settlement agreement. The settlement agreement in 1999 was an agreement to provide final closure. The parties were well aware that not all the information at the time was on the table. Berger was still, the Commission at the time was still looking for information, in fact completed only in 2002, so it was clear that was anticipated that new information would have come to light. And I think that you get exactly to the right point. The parties at the point agreed to pay a certain amount that was based on specific legal claims, but the majority of it was to cover the unknown. Everything.
All right, so we are listening in there live on Capitol Hill. Investigations by Credit Suisse have uncovered hundreds of Nazi-linked accounts at the bank. That's according to Senator Chuck Grassley, announcing that today. Multiple reports provided to Grassley have identified 890 accounts linked to the Nazi regime, including wartime accounts for the German Foreign Office, a German arms manufacturing company, and the German Red Cross. We will continue to follow this here, but we did want to just bring you out to the House floor because right now we do see they are voting on that procedural vote to end the government shutdown. We're going to step away for a quick commercial break. We'll head back to this in a matter of moments. Stay with us. Welcome back to Live Now from Fox. I'm your host, Christy Matino, and at this hour we are watching the House very closely here because right now they are voting on that procedural vote on funding the government. We can see the clock has run down there on the time, but President Trump implored the House just yesterday to end the partial government shutdown, but neither Republicans nor Democrats appeared ready to quickly approve the federal funding package he brokered with the Senate without first debating their own demands over immigration enforcement operations. Democrats are refusing to provide the votes to House Speaker Mike Johnson that he needs to push the package forward as they try to rein in the Trump administration's deportation operations. So that's really forcing Johnson there to rely on his slim GOP majority to fall in line behind President Trump's deal with Senate Democrats. Now, the Pentagon, Homeland Security, and other agencies saw their funding lapse on Saturday, and while many operations at those departments are deemed essential and still functioning, some workers may go without pay or be furloughed. And as we've been sharing here, we did hear from President Trump on social media just a short time ago, and he had said this: there can be no changes at this time. We will work together in good faith to address the issues that have been raised, but we cannot have another long, pointless, and disruptive shutdown. Now, the president struck a deal just last week with Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer, in which Homeland Security would only be funded temporarily through February 13th as Congress debates changes to immigration enforcement operations. The Senate overwhelmingly approved that package with the rest of the government funding ahead of Saturday's deadline. Now, Democrats are demanding restraints on immigration and customs enforcement that go beyond $20 million for body cameras that already are in the bill. And Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem announced on Monday, just yesterday, that officers on the ground in Minneapolis, including ICE, will be immediately issued body-worn cameras, and the program would be expanded nationwide as funding is available. But Democrats are pressing for more. They want to require that federal immigration agents unmask, noting that few, if any, other law enforcement agencies routinely mask themselves in the United States, and they want officers to rely on judicial rather than administrative warrants in their operations. They also want an end to roving patrols amid other changes, and we also do know that Hakeem Jeffries said the administration needs to begin negotiations now, not over the next 2 weeks, on changes to immigration enforcement operations. Certain Democrats, however, are splintering with him and pushing for quicker passage of the funding package to avoid government disruptions. At the same time, House Republicans with some allies in the Senate are making their own demands as they work to support President Trump's enforcement there on immigration crackdown in the U.S., as we have been seeing. Now, the House Freedom Caucus has insisted on fuller funding for Homeland Security, while certain Republicans push to include the SAVE Act, which is a long shot there. It's a Trump priority that would require proof of citizenship before Americans are eligible to participate in elections and vote. Critics are saying it would disenfranchise millions of voters. But late yesterday, we did see Representative Anna Paulina Luna dropped her demand to attach the voting bill to the funding package after she and Representative Tim Burchett met with Trump at the White House. She posted afterward that it would be better to try to advance the bill separately through the Senate and keep the government open. So if you are just joining us here on Live Now from Fox, we are going to stay on this here as we are awaiting the results after this procedural vote is now underway there in the House. Let's just turn up the sound here, see if we can hear anything quickly. All right, so just some ambient audio there, but what I did want to do is share with you, we are getting live updates in from social media, and I wanted to put this one up on your screen, and this is from Ryan Schmelz with Fox News saying, Massey votes no on the procedural rule on the bill to reopen the government. Republicans can't afford to lose another. Both sides traditionally vote with their conference/caucus on the rule. So let's just go back out to this live look right now, and we can see Republican, there is 212 yeas and 2 nays. Democrats, 214 nays. No yays there. So at the total right now, we see 212 yays and 216 nays. So once again, we do know that Johnson is going to need that near unanimous support. And we did just learn here from Ryan Schmelz that Massey has voted no on the procedural rule on the bill to reopen the government. So Republicans can't afford to lose another as we are continuing to listen in live here. And we are just going to say on this live, we'll continue to watch here together. But I did want to speak on the key differences between this partial government shutdown that we are currently in and the last shutdown that we saw recently. So the path to the current partial shutdown differs from the last time, which affected more agencies and lasted that record 43 days that we saw. Then the debate was over extending temporary coronavirus pandemic era subsidies for those who get health coverage through the Affordable Care Act. Democrats were unsuccessful in getting those subsidies included as part of a package to end the shutdown. Congress has made important progress since then, passing 6 of the 12 annual appropriations bills that fund federal agencies and programs. That includes important programs such as nutrition assistance and fully operating national parks and historic sites. They are funded through September 30th. But the remaining unpassed bills represent roughly 3/4 of federal spending, including the Defense Department. Service members and federal workers could miss paychecks depending upon the length of the current funding lapse. Now, as I said here a little bit earlier, but I did want to reiterate for those who may just be tuning in, some House Republicans have demanded that the funding package include legislation requiring voters to show proof of citizenship before they are eligible to participate in elections. Representative Anna Paulina Luna had said the legislation known as the SAVE Act must be included in the appropriations package, but Luna appeared to drop her objections last night, writing on social media that she had spoken with President Trump about a pathway forward for the voting bill in the Senate that would keep the government open. We also do know that House Speaker Mike Johnson said on Fox News Channel's Fox News Sunday that it was President Trump's, quote, play call to do it this way. He had already conceded he wants to turn down the volume, so to speak, but GOP leaders sounded as if they still had work to do in convincing the rank and file to join them as House lawmakers returned to the Capitol yesterday after a week back in their congressional districts. We did hear from House Majority Leader Steve Scalise as he says, we always work till the midnight hour to get the votes. You never start the process with everybody on board. You work through it, and you could say that about every major bill we've passed. That funding package passed the Senate on Friday. President Trump says he'll sign it immediately if it passes the House here. Some Democrats are expected to vote for the final bill, but not for the initial procedural measure, setting the terms for the House debate, making it the tougher test for Johnson and the White House. Also, Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries had made clear that Democrats wouldn't help Republicans out of their procedural jam, even though Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer helped negotiate negotiate the funding bill. Now, Jeffries also noted that the procedural vote covers a variety of issues that most Democrats oppose, including resolutions to hold former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton in contempt of Congress over the Jeffrey Epstein investigation. And we are going to stay on this for just another couple moments here. We just want to make sure we can bring this to you in real time. We do still see the totals there. Republicans are at 212 yeas and 2 nays, and Democrats at 214 nays. So right now the total at 212 yeas, 216 nays. And we do know that this ongoing partial government shutdown is now in its 4th day. However, House GOP leaders are confident that the end is near, as House Speaker Mike Johnson was aiming to hold this chamber-wide procedural vote on the Senate's funding compromise this afternoon. And now we're seeing it happen, play out live here. And that would tee up the subsequent vote on final passage potentially later today. This also comes after he and President Trump quelled by House conservatives who were threatening to tank the measure if an unrelated election integrity bill was not attached to the funding legislation. House GOP leaders have been watching anxiously for signs of defections there as well. And we are still watching this here. I do want to continue to leave this up on your screen. We're working here behind the scenes. I know you can't see us right now. We're working here to try to get in some information, some new information here for you. I did want to put this up on your screen. This is from Chad Pergram with Fox News, and he's saying the House is now taking that procedural vote to put the modified funding bill on the floor. This test vote could be the key vote of the day toward ending the partial shutdown. So we are going to leave this up on your screen for another couple moments here. It does not appear to have audio at this time, but let's continue listening. All right, and as I said, we are working behind the scenes here to bring you updates as we do get them in real time. Once again, this just coming in from Chad Pergram with Fox saying 2 GOP no's are on the board. We do know now that Massey and Rose have voted no. However, 4 GOPers still haven't voted yet, and he goes on to list them there. Johnson needs these 4 to vote yes, and 1 of the nays to flip. Otherwise, the rule will fail on the revised spending bill. So once again, let's just read that too. Oh, never mind. This is from Congressman John Rose. As we do know, he just voted no, saying it's one thing to say you support the SAVE Act. It's another to attach it to must-pass legislation that can pass. And frankly, I don't trust Mitch McConnell and John Thune, who are suddenly assuring House Republicans they'll pass the SAVE Act if we shut up and fund the government via their Senate bill. The SAVE Act has sat in the GOP-controlled Senate for over 300 days. If they ignore it then, why believe they'll act after we fold? 83% of Americans want proof of citizenship to vote, including 71% of Democrats. This vital election integrity bill belongs on must-pass legislation. So that statement just coming in here from the social media platform X from Congressman John Rose, as we do know, he just voted no there, as well as Massey also voting no there. Can we get back? I'm going to talk to my producers. Can we get back to the last post here from Chad Pergram? I just wanted to share that with the viewers again. We're going to pull that back up right here. Okay, so this just coming in again from Chad Pergram, as he's saying 2 GOP no's on the board. We do know now Rose and Massey. 4 GOPers have not yet voted, and Johnson needs those 4 to vote yes, and 1 of the nays to flip. Otherwise, the rule will fail on this revised spending bill. This is the latest update we are just getting in here from Chad Pergram as we continue to listen live. And once again, here's that graphic there of Republicans who voted no on that test vote. A key procedural vote to take up the bill is being held open as Republican leaders are trying to wrangle those votes there. So once again on your screen, 2 Republicans, Representatives Thomas Massey of Kentucky and John Rose of Tennessee, have voted against moving forward with this bill. So as we've been sharing here, Republicans can only afford 1 defection as they control the House 218 to 214. So 4 other Republicans have not yet voted. All 214 House Democrats have voted no. Rose in that social media post said Republicans must hold the line and get a commitment from Senate Republicans to move forward with voting legislation. So these updates, again, coming in here in real time. Looks like we just got another one in here. Let's put this up on your screen. Once again from Ryan Schnells with Fox News saying, happening on the floor, Scalise and Dusty Johnson are speaking with John Rose, who's a no on the rule. Speaker Johnson is talking to others there as well, and Freedom Caucus members. The 3 haven't voted. And so I did want to just head back to that live look there. That's an update we just got from Ryan Schnells, as we do know some discussions now being had there. And I want to put up that image live on your screen once again as we continue to listen in. And thanks for being here with us on Live Now from Fox. As we continue to watch there on the House floor, we do still see these numbers stuck there at 212 yeas to 216 nays as this procedural vote is ongoing. We also do know from Ryan Schmelz of Fox News, he says happening on the floor, Scalise and Dusty Johnson are speaking with John Rose, who's a no on the rule. And we also do know that Thomas Massey also is a no there. But as we have been seeing these numbers not budge as of right now, we are going to pivot to some other news. We'll put this up in a box for you so you can keep an eye on this. And of course, once we do see which way this goes here, we will pivot back to that. Also, that just popped up here, I wanted to share with you. This is a Senate stakeout camera, so if we do see anybody step up there, we are also going to bring it to you as well. As we transition to some other news, I did want to share this here with you. We continue to follow this story as Savannah Guthrie put out this statement on her missing mother, saying, on behalf of our family, I want to thank everyone for the thoughts, prayers, and messages of support. Right now, our focus remains on the safe return of our dear mom. Now, we also do know that the Pima County Sheriff's Office shared this, saying that there will be a media briefing today at 1:30 p.m. Eastern time. Now, if you are just tuning into the story, investigators did find signs of forced entry at the Arizona home of Today Show host Savannah Guthrie's mother, as the host asked for prayers now, as you can see there, to help bring back the 84-year-old whom authorities believe was taken against her will. So we are going to be hearing from Sheriff Nanos a little bit later today. However, just a few moments ago, my colleague Josh Breslow actually did speak with him, and I wanted to share those comments here with you ahead of this press conference a bit later today.
Sheriff Chris Nanos of Pima County, Arizona, joining us now to discuss the case. And Sheriff, I know you're busy. Thank you so much for being with us here today.
Certainly, you're welcome.
And I want to start by kind of going back to the beginning. Can you kind of break down for me how all this played out over the weekend?
Well, you know, I'm going back to Sunday. It's probably maybe a little bit before 2 in the afternoon. I get a briefing. I get a lot of briefings, and this is from my search and rescue team. You know, we have a pretty robust search and rescue team that does a great job. We've got desert trails and some beautiful mountain terrain, and so sometimes you get hikers who need assistance or they've got lost. And we also have a pretty large retirement community, and sometimes we get somebody may walk away from a care facility, and so they're called out to those events as well. They are very good at what they do in finding people. So usually their briefings that they give me are, hey, we're going out on somebody on a trailhead that got lost or injured, or we're looking for this elderly person who may wander away from a care facility. This briefing was a little bit more. I don't want to get into the details, but when they sent it to me, I thought, this is not our normal elderly person missing. This is an 84-year-old woman who has all of her faculties and just as sharp as a tack. And there were some things they described at her home that just didn't set well. And I just felt like, you know what, we need to bifurcate this a little bit. We're gonna take our search and rescue team and continue in that operation, and hopefully they'll find her here shortly and we'll be done. But in the meantime, I can't sit here and just ignore what I'm hearing. And so we get our homicide team started to the house as well to start the criminal side of this investigation. Today, we moved fast forward to now. The search and rescue still will go on to some extent, but clearly this is more and more turning into nothing but a criminal investigation that will use the search and rescue resources should they need them to help them locate Ms. Guthrie.
I wanted to ask you a little bit about this DNA sample. I know you can't go into specific details right now because you want to protect the integrity of the investigation. What can you tell me about a DNA sample found there inside the home?
Well, what I would tell you is we process the scene. The criminal team's got there. They like any crime scene, right? You're doing everything you can. You're gathering physical evidence from cameras and cell phones and anywhere you can find digital imagery, whatever it may be. We want it now, right? I'm like you. I want to know right now. But those companies, those corporations that handle those things for us, they've stepped up in a big way. In fact, actually, we've heard, and it's thanks to the media. We've heard from people like Google and Apple and Meta and FaceTime, all these major corporations. Some of our flock camera systems, like Axon camera system companies, they've called and said, "What do you need, Sheriff?" So we really appreciate that, and that's really a direct result from what you all have done for us. Our community support is tremendous, and again, like I say, our law enforcement teams, both locally, statewide, federally, FBI's been super. Everybody's been just a great team effort here in Tucson, and we'll continue working that way.
I wanted to ask about some of the comments that were made about her believed to have been taken against her will. There's been questions about kind of the description of that and whether it means that she was possibly kidnapped, abducted. What can you kind of say to clarify that?
I could just shut up. That would help a lot. You know, for me, I'm learning to every word I say, rightfully so. People are hanging on to so mea culpa. When I say she's taken from her bed, that's pretty figuratively speaking. I can't, and I'll try to watch that. But we believe she went to bed that night, and sometime in the middle of the night, she was removed from that home against her will. We're working on the time frame. We've got the time frame from 9:30, 9:45 Saturday. She's dropped off by family, and then 11 in the morning she's discovered to be missing by family. That's a large window. We understand that, and we're working on narrowing that down to give us a better focus point. But for me, the fear is if I tell you, oh, it's from 10 a.m. or it's 10 p.m. to 12 midnight. I could lose a lot of data from our community to say, oh, well, this happened at 1 in the morning, so it couldn't have been it. No, we don't want that. We want our community to just give us all the data you have, all the information you have, and we'll be the ones to decipher that and dismiss it if need be. But just keep that information coming. Again, thanks to the media, we're getting a lot of leads, a lot of good tips, and that's vital to any case. But particularly this one, we're stumped. We came to a home that the person is missing, and now we've got to find it. And this is under some pretty unusual circumstances.
Social media in general, it can be a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing. Tell me how it's kind of maybe helped in this situation as you are trying to gather those leads. As you said, there have been a lot that have come in, but how does social media kind of factor into that?
Yeah. So for me, we have our own social media team, our public information officers, our community relations teams. They're all over that. They keep an eye on it. They watch for it. As to other agencies, from now and then we hear from, it may be the FBI, it may be DPS. Somebody says, hey, we got this tip on social media, but we monitor it and look at it. And, I think it's as much as some days I hate politics and I hate social media, it can be a tool that's very valuable in hearing a way to hear from your community and understand where their thoughts are at in all of this. So there's not any source of information and there's not any piece of information that we just discuss. We keep our eyes on all of it, and we encourage good, healthy discussion and that information flow to come to us so we can solve cases, not just this one, other cases.
Yeah, of course. And my last question here for you is about your message. What message do you want to get out to the people there in your county, the people in Tucson, the surrounding area? What is your message to them right now?
Well, for my community, they know we depend so great on them. They've always stepped up. Anytime we needed something. So I really, my team knows that support is there. I know it's there. And we just ask that, look, take care of one another. Keep your eyes, your ears open. And that's not just looking at this case, but everything you do in your daily lives. Take care of each other. Be kind to each other. And know that when these incidents happen, your information, your input is really critical in solving these kinds of cases. So a big thank you to my community again, but also keep vigilant and keep letting us know what you know.
Sheriff, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us. I know you have a lot going on, very busy. You've been going nonstop. Thank you so much. Is there anything else that you want to add? Anything we missed here before I let you go?
No, there's a lot of media attention on this, and rightfully so. We appreciate it. But we're going to probably change this up a little bit because it's just so hard to answer everybody's questions. We're going to try to establish a period of time for the East Coast and the West Coast where we can have you guys just check in. Everybody check in. And my team is working on that, where we'll do that. Maybe it's a daily briefing. I don't even know it's a briefing. It's more a chance to clear up things that maybe I say can arrest on this, that those are protected as well. It's just really, it's for the benefit of the case and the investigation. And there's just certain things that we know that the only person who knows that what happened at that home is Miss Nancy Guthrie and the individual involved in this. And that's critical to any case.
All right, Sheriff, thank you again for taking the time to join us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you. And I really appreciate the work all of you have done for us. Thank you so much.
And that was an interview just conducted by my colleague Josh Breslow ahead of this press conference at 1:30 p.m. Eastern time today. We will be bringing that to you. Once again, Sheriff Nanos will be hosting that media briefing. I do want to take you back out to Capitol Hill before we step away for a break because we were seeing those yay votes sitting at about 212 and those nays at 216. But if we pull this up for you now, you'll see that there are some more yay votes. And we are working here to see who voted yay. And we're going to bring that to you once we do step away for this commercial break as we are combing through social media trying to get new information to bring to you on Live Now from Fox. Stay with us. My name is Christy Mattina. We'll be right back. You're watching Live Now from Fox. Welcome back. I do want to take you back out to the House floor. We do have some new information for you that I wanted to share. So, as I was saying before the break, we do see those yeas have increased to 215 on the Republican side. And we do have some information coming in here from Ryan Schmelz with Fox News. He's saying Sparks and Donalds have voted yes on the rule to proceed the government funding bill. And this is a tad dated because he's saying here it's sitting at 214 and 216, and we do know now it is at 215. He then goes on to say Troy Nehls will need to vote yes, and GOP leadership will need to flip John Rose for it to pass. But we are also hearing right now that Troy Nehls did vote yes. We are still working to confirm that here. So once again, this tweet potentially a little bit dated there when it comes to that. But I did want to go on and read this last portion here, saying GOP leadership will need to flip John Rose for it to pass. And Rose is a no over Thune's comments on the SAVE Act. And I did share here just a short time ago that Republicans were trying to really wrangle those votes there. So this is all happening live. These votes slowly starting to come in here. We do know there was also some discussion there on the House floor as well. And this is from Congressman John Rose. This is the latest we have heard from him on social media. Just want to read it to you. It says, it's one thing to say you support the SAVE Act. It's another to attach it to must-pass legislation that can pass. And frankly, I don't trust Mitch McConnell and John Thune, who are suddenly assuring House Republicans they'll pass the SAVE Act if we shut up and fund the government via their Senate bill. The SAVE Act has sat in the GOP-controlled Senate for over 300 days. If they ignored it then, why believe they'll act after we fold? 83% of Americans want proof of citizenship to vote, including 71% of Democrats. And this vital election integrity bill belongs on must-pass legislation. So once again, here is that live look there on the House floor right now. As we also did learn a bit earlier that two Republicans, Representative Thomas Massie of Kentucky and John Rose of Tennessee, who we just heard from there, have voted against moving forward with the bill. So as we continue to watch this here, I just want to turn this down for a moment, see if we can hear anything. It's likely that we won't, as we've been turning up the audio here. It has just been ambient background noise, but let's listen in. All right, so what we're going to do is continue to keep an eye on this here for you on Live Now from Fox. Also, I just wanted to remind you that we do have this live stakeout camera. As you can hear, this is coming from inside the Senate. So what we're going to do is monitor this as well, see if we can get any comments there from lawmakers. In the meantime, we are hearing live right now from Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson. We do have several live events that we are watching here. Let's head out to Chicago now and listen in.
Mayors across this country are organizing around how we provide executive authority in our respective spaces. I know Philadelphia right now, the city council is literally looking at the executive orders that we put forward in Chicago as a template and a guide for them to codify stronger protections for the people of that city. New Orleans, there are a groundswell of organizers down there calling for the same type of executive authority that we've implemented in the city of Chicago. And so all I'm simply saying is that as the groundswell continues to grow for accountability, the city of Chicago, as we have always done, we're prepared and willing to always lead and to go first to create a pathway for accountability. And then like any other case, the state's attorney has their jurisdiction to decide if they're going to move forward with prosecution. But that's the autonomy that the state's attorney has.
How you doing, Mayor Johnson?
I'm doing well, thank you.
What conversations have your office had with the state's attorney's office following Saturday's announcement and signing the executive order and her posts and statements on social media suggesting that she had not had an opportunity to review the executive order? And do you feel like you and the state's attorney's office are on the same page here?
Well, look, the state's attorney has said publicly that she is prepared to prosecute federal agents, has not had evidence brought before her, which makes sense, right? And so what I did, I used my authority to create a pathway for accountability. As long as there's a pathway for accountability based upon, again, what's happening nationally, people are being killed. Police officers have been harmed by federal agents indiscriminately releasing tear gas. The type of terror and chaos that has been evoked by this administration is something that has to be checked. And so there will always be ongoing conversations at every level of government. My corporate counsel speaks with the Attorney General, right? I'm speaking with mayors across this country and around the state of Illinois. I have conversations with the governor's administration. I'm doing everything in my power to provide any level of support that can ultimately lead towards justice and protecting the people of the city of Chicago. So I don't see it as a disconnect. Look, Democrats know what our responsibility is in this moment, and it's imperative that we stand up for the working class, for the downtrodden, for undocumented families, for working people across the city, across this country.
Quickly, Christina Passione-Zayas said last week that you are considering a reboot of Bring Chicago Home. How close are you to pulling the trigger on that, if you are, and what are the circumstances that make you think that you'll have a better hearing the second time around?
Well, I think what she was ultimately getting at is that we are looking at all forms of progressive revenue, right? That just like the fair tax was unsuccessful, we have seen other ballot measures not move in our favor. The millionaire's tax, as you know, I've been calling for that consistently. I've been a long supporter and champion of it. As of August of last year, I believe, you heard the Speaker of the House provide his support. He has reinforced that. So I believe that we have to continue to look at all of it. But in the meantime, we're going to be focused in on our efforts in Springfield to draw more progressive revenue so that we can continue to make the necessary investments to build safe and affordable communities.
Hi, Mayor.
Hi.
The state's attorney has either declined to join a coalition of other prosecutors who are exploring ways to charge federal agents engaging in misconduct or criminal activity during those immigration raids. Would you call on state's attorney O'Neill Burke to join that coalition and work with people like Philadelphia District Attorney Larry Krasner to develop those strategies?
Well, look, I've repeatedly said that we all have to work together and ultimately build progressive power and strength as we push back against the Trump administration and work to protect all of the people of this country. As far as any individual, call, that's something that person has to be drawn to do. That has to be a personal conviction. I do see unity is our greatest strength. I was in D.C. last week with the U.S. Conference of Mayors. You're seeing bipartisan support grow. I want to commend the leadership of President and Mayor Holt, who has helped draw these connections one to another to call out this administration. So I think it's...
All right, so we're listening in there to Mayor Brendan Johnson out of Chicago, but I do want to take you back out to the House momentarily here because we are just getting this in from Chad Burgum with Fox News saying the House approves rule for spending bill after lots of drama, now moving to debate on the bill. So this is breaking news. This is just coming in here. Let's head out to the House live.
7148. Pursuant to House Resolution 1032, the motion shall be debatable for 1 hour, equally divided and controlled by the chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on Appropriations or their respective designees. The gentleman from Oklahoma, Mr. Cole, and the gentlewoman from Connecticut, Ms. DeLauro, each will control 30 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Oklahoma.
Madam Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous material on the measure under consideration.
Without objection.
Madam Speaker, I yield myself such time that I may consume.
The gentleman's recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The House has done a tremendous job these last few months as we finalize true bipartisan bicameral bills to fully fund our government in a member-driven, district-focused way. 6 of those bills have been signed into law by President Trump, fully funding those departments and agencies through the end of the fiscal year. While the remaining 6 bills have all passed the House, we're dealing with a partial government shutdown that could have and should have been avoided. Funding the government is not an optional exercise. It's the most basic duty we have in Congress. 2 weeks ago, the House and the Senate struck a bipartisan and bicameral deal to move forward on these remaining appropriations bills for fiscal year 2026. The House acted expeditiously to pass these bills, marking historic progress for our appropriations process and the return to regular order that every member of this chamber wants to see. I share the frustrations of many that the Senate altered our deal at the last minute. But our obligation is not to these emotions, it's to the American people. While we all worked hard, especially our Cardinals, to ensure that all 12 bills would be signed into law before the January 30th deadline, the Senate has put us on a different path. The best choice before us is to pass these 5 bills and the short-term stopgap for the Department of Homeland Security. This approach delivers full-year funding to more than 95% of the government and avoids the consequence of inaction. To continue the government shutdown would be to repeat all the same mistakes my friends across the aisle made in October of last year, throwing federal employees into chaos and confusion while they are forced to work without pay, wreaking havoc on our airports while TSA and FFA are unfunded, putting undue stress on our military families, and causing further instability to the United States economy. Shutdowns are never the answer. They don't work. They only hurt the American people. So today, lawmakers in this chamber have an opportunity to avoid repeating past mistakes. I encourage everyone on both sides of the aisle to do the right thing and close out 5 of our remaining 6 appropriations bills for FY 2026 while enacting funding for core priorities, including strengthening America's defense and providing a well-earned pay raise to our troops, advancing life-saving biomedical research and critical education programs, enhancing the safety and reliability of Democrats in good faith conversations on that front. He's also been explicitly clear that holding the government hostage is wrong. I wholeheartedly agree with him. As he stated just yesterday, and I quote, "We need to get the government open, and I hope all Republicans and Democrats will join me in supporting this bill and send it to my desk without delay." So I say to this chamber, let's get it done. The American people deserve stability, and they expect results. These bills deliver both. For anyone consulting their conscience, these measures have already passed the House with strong bipartisan support. The work has been carried out, and the responsibility now is to get it across the finish line. This vote is about governing responsibly and doing our jobs. I look forward to us nearing the completion of our FY 26 duties, and I urge all members to support this bipartisan package. Madam Speaker, with that, I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Oklahoma.
And we did just want to bring you some comments there from the House floor as they were debating the spending bill. And we did also get this in here saying Ogles voted yes and John Rose flipped his vote to yes. The rule passes 217 to 215, a major step towards the government shutdown ending. Debate now beginning there as we were just listening to on final passage with a vote expected after. All right, well, this is a very busy breaking news day here, and we're actually going to shift gears here. We just got some information as we're learning the U.S. military has shot down an Iranian drone approaching the USS Abraham Lincoln in the Arabian Sea. This is according to officials, and Fox News also sharing this to social media here, saying the U.S. military shot down an unmanned Iranian drone today after it, quote, aggressively approached a U.S. Navy aircraft carrier with unclear intent. And that is according to a U.S. Central Command spokesperson speaking to Fox News. It also goes on to say USS Abraham Lincoln was transiting the Arabian Sea, approximately 500 miles from Iran's southern coast, when an Iranian drone unnecessarily maneuvered towards the ship. So that's all we have in here right now. This is breaking. So as you can see there on your post from Fox News, a U.S. fighter jet shoots down unmanned Iranian drone that was approaching the USS Abraham Lincoln, and that is according to a U.S. Central Command spokesman. So we just wanted to share that here with you on Live Now from Fox. As we are continuing to learn more about that, we will bring you more information. All right, stepping away for a commercial break. We'll be back with more news in 2 minutes. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching Live Now from Fox. I'm your host, Christy Matino. We continue with this breaking news as we're learning the U.S. military has shot down an Iranian drone. Here's what we know. This is still developing. According to Fox News, a U.S. fighter jet has shot down an unmanned Iranian drone that was approaching the USS Abraham Lincoln in the Arabian Sea. That's according to a U.S. Central Command spokesman. I do want to also just read you this article we have as well from Fox News, saying the U.S. military shot down an unmanned Iranian drone today after it, quote, aggressively approached
over this country. The only way we can get these things is to fight for and win them and let the public know what we are fighting for. Passing these 5 full-year funding bills today puts us in the best position to win that fight over the next 10 days, the 6 legislative days, and beyond, if need be. I strongly encourage my colleagues to support this bill today and continue to fight to protect our communities in the coming weeks. Thank you, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Connecticut reserves. The gentleman from Oklahoma is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I yield 3 minutes to the distinguished chairman of the Transportation, Housing, and Urban Development Subcommittee of the Appropriations Committee, my very good friend, the gentleman from Arkansas, Mr. Womack.
For how much time is the gentleman? 3 minutes. The gentleman from Arkansas is recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in support of the consolidated appropriations package before the House today. Passage of this legislation means that Congress will have provided full-year funding to more than 90% of the federal government. And it marks an important departure from the unfortunate norm in which Congress too often fails to meet its Article I responsibility. There are many highlights worth noting in this package. In providing for the common defense, legislation strategically increases funding to ensure that our military continues to be the most lethal in the world, while also ensuring that our allies have the tools they need to help us defend democracy. The package also makes investments in biomedical research and small business development. Together, these measures and more support a more prosperous America. Madam Speaker, I chair the Transportation, Housing, and Urban Development Subcommittee. My division of this legislation cuts back unfocused spending and reduces bureaucratic bloat. Before I get into specifics, let me just thank my subcommittee ranking member, Jim Clyburn, for his partnership. He's been a great friend, and he's been an invaluable asset and partner through this process, and I appreciate his dedication to crafting this division of the bill and advancing the entire package. The THUD division invests in what matters to the American people: economic growth, safe and efficient mobility, and housing affordability. We prioritize safety by allocating over $22 billion for the Federal Aviation Administration. These dollars will fully fund air traffic control operations and enable the hiring of 2,500 new controllers. It'll jumpstart the modernization of outdated facilities and equipment, strengthening the safety and reliability of our national airspace system. We provide more than $64 billion for highways, taking care to send the overwhelming majority of these dollars back to the states, because it's at the state level where the best decisions are made, not here in Washington. We also provide funding to address our nation's shortage of safe and available truck parking. America's truckers work tirelessly to keep our grocery store stocked, our packages delivered, and our supply chains moving. Ensuring they have a safe place to park between long drives is common sense, and this bill delivers on that promise. At the same time, we preserve housing assistance for the most vulnerable, such as youth aging out of our nation's foster care system, while promoting affordability through flexible, locally driven programs that allow communities to expand housing supply without the micromanagement of the federal government. It does all these things while saving millions of hard-earned American taxpayer dollars. I want to thank my subcommittee staff, Avery, Andrew, Doug, Mary Beth. Your hard work and diligence has been indispensable throughout this process, and know that I'm deeply grateful to have each one of you on my team.
An additional 30 seconds, Madam Speaker.
So I'm going to take that 30 seconds and brag on this guy right here, Tom Cole. He has re-engineered, somewhat reinvented, a lost appropriations process, and I am eternally grateful, and I know I speak for the American people in thanking Mr. Cole for his leadership. I want to thank my colleagues for this bipartisanship that's been exhibited by this package, and a yes vote today takes us one step closer to restoring the confidence that the American people should have in this Congress. And with that...
All right, so once again, listening there on the House floor, the House beginning up to 1 hour of debate on the Senate amendments there after we did see that procedural vote that just happened within the past hour here. We're going to head back to those comments on the House floor in just a matter of moments. We do have to take a final commercial break of this hour. My name is Christy Matino. We'll be right back. Thanks for being here with us on Live Now from Fox, and happy Tuesday to you. I did want to put this post back up on your screen. As we do know, the House is beginning up to 1 hour of debate on the Senate amendments. We were just listening in before the break on the House floor. There are 2 lawmakers. This all coming after the House narrowly voted to advance a shutdown-ending spending package. That's setting it up for a final vote later in the day that could be sent to President Trump's desk. On the other side of this is my colleague Stephanie Quinn. Thanks for being here with us on Live Now from Fox.
And in my view, the laws that they are breaking, the Constitution that they are not respecting, and the human rights that they are undermining. There will be time for that debate. There will be time for that action. Today is a time to fund the majority of government for the American people. Minneapolis has shocked the conscience of America. We ought to be shocked, angry, and disgusted by the taking of life of Renee Good and Alex Preddy. We the people want to end this violent occupation of our cities. We the people deserve answers. The Congress needs to rein in the Department of Homeland Security. That's why I voted, and so many of my colleagues voted against funding the Department of Homeland Security. Not because we don't need Homeland Security, we do, but we need it done within the context of the Constitution and the laws of this country and of our states. This Congress needs to ensure the federal government can continue to provide vital services to the American people. Voting for this bill does that. And voting for this bill also gives us the opportunity to constrain 6 months, 6 days essentially of funding for the Department of Homeland Security. Unfortunately, out of the regular order, they're funded for the balance of the year in many recessions. So this compromise bill serves the interest of funding our government for the American people and giving us the opportunity to constrain and to ensure that there are meaningful, substantive, substantial reforms and restraints placed upon the operations of the Department of Homeland Security, as it must be. It is essential that we unmask Trump's federal immigration agents, force them to abide by the local law enforcement standards for use of force, and use warrants.
I yield the gentleman another minute. The gentleman's recognized for 1 more minute.
Throughout this year's appropriations process, we have seen Donald Trump and Russell Vogt trample on this Congress's power of the purse. Some will admit that, some will say it silently. If there were ever a time for this Congress to exercise that power, it is now. So let us pass 5 bills on which we have agreement, substantially restrain and stop the funding of DHS a week from this Friday, and then come to an agreement on honoring the Constitution, the laws of this country, and the conduct of law enforcement. Let's pass this bill, and then focus on that which the country wants us to focus on like a laser for them, for the people. I yield back my time.
The gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Connecticut reserves. The gentleman from Oklahoma is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I yield 3 minutes to my very good friend and the distinguished chairman of the Labor, Health and Human Services and Education Subcommittee of the Appropriations Committee, the gentleman from Alabama, Mr. Adderholt.
The gentleman from Alabama is recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today, as my colleagues are, in support of FY26 appropriations package, which, as it's been said, provides the full year funds for 5 out of the remaining 6 appropriation bills. Unfortunately, funding these bills is not an optional thing. It's a part of our constitutional requirement, and we must act on our commitment to the American people. With this bill that is before us today, the government will continue operating effectively and provide stability for the American people. The path forward in this legislation reflects President Trump's negotiations and direction to avoid a long-term partial shutdown and keep the government operating without further disruptions. As chairman of the Labor, Health and Human Services and Education-related agency subcommittee, I'm honored to work with the ranking member of this subcommittee, Ms. DeLauro, who also serves as ranking member of the full committee, in making sure that what we do in this legislation provide funding for critical projects that provide support and for jobs for local growth in our districts. The Labor, Health and Human Services bill on the floor today balances the need for responsible fiscal stewardship while maintaining key investments in biomedical research, schools, and public health. Thanks to the negotiations on a bicameral, bipartisan level, funding decisions have moved through a deliberative, member-driven process that emphasizes transparency, accountability, as well as timely consideration. The Labor H bill before us demonstrates the will of the American people who want new priorities and accountability in government, including priorities to make America healthy again and make America skilled again. Investments in this bill are directed to where they matter most, into life-saving biomedical research and resilient medical supply chains, classrooms and training that prepare the next generation for success, and rural hospitals and primary care to end chronic disease epidemic. These measures are part of an agreement that keeps the FY26 spending levels below the spending that was projected under the current continuing resolution, which delivers real savings for the American taxpayers. Enactment and passage of a full-year appropriation is vital. In conclusion, I want to thank the staff on both sides of the majority and the minority for all their hard work in getting this bill across the finish line. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Once again, I urge my colleagues to support the underlying bill, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Oklahoma reserves. The gentleman from Connecticut is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I yield 4 minutes to the gentleman from South Carolina, the distinguished ranking member of the Transportation, Housing and Urban Development Subcommittee, Mr. Clyburn.
We are continuing to listen as the House is debating the funding package ahead of the final vote. This is you're taking a live look on